Welcome along, everybody, to Keep Your Friends Close and Your Animes Closer. With me, as always, your anime knight.
And your name?
Oh, shit. Joel, my name is Joel and I'm your anime knight.
My name is Robert and I'm your anime squire.
My name's Curtis and I'm your anime peasant.
That was me.
Sorry, my lord. Spitting on.
Yeah. I don't know how to interact with peasants.
I don't know. How does squires...
spitting?
I'll take my answer.
Yeah.
Here's a coin. Copper piece.
Not because they're not worth copper.
Go and get some bread.
This is a podcast where we get to know anime just a little bit better.
Yeah.
Than we know ourselves and our friends. One anime at a time. But only the good ones. That people tell us
from here on out.
From here on out. Well, no, I think it's only big parentheses or big air quotations. The good ones.
The good ones. Yeah.
The ones that everybody recommends, everybody knows. Tackling them one show at a time. This week we watched Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, Studio Ghibli's first breakout hit, and we're going to talk about that today. But I thought that we could start with some follow-up, because I have to make an amendment to something I said before, and it's not really a fact, this is more of an opinion that I gave. It was weeks and weeks ago now.
John has changed his opinion on something.
Yeah, I have. So Darling in the Franxx, don't watch it.
Oh.
I rescind my recommendation.
Interesting, yeah.
Episode 19 and 20, it's still airing. Episode 19 and 20 were just dog shit.
I thought you were going to sugarcoat that a little bit more.
Explain what Darling in the Franxx was again.
So Darling in the Franxx is a currently airing anime.
Can I see if I remember which one it was? Because you recommended it. It was the one. It was the one that was like. It was a very obvious analogy for sex between teams.
Yeah,
they're like mech suits, sort of Pacific Rim. They needed two pilots to co-pilot a gigantic mech. And the male and the female, it had to be a boy and a girl. And
I think I watched the first episode of it.
Yeah, beautiful art direction.
Yeah.
And I looked up, because you said it was like a sexualized cockpit position where the guy's like sitting behind the girl just in doggy style effectively, and like his controls are coming out of her ass kind of thing. And so it's not good.
It's not good. So the first couple episodes are really strong, and then the middle of the show is quite strong again. There's a few low points where nothing is really happening. It just becomes a bit of a teen drama where they're not fighting anything, even though it's a mech show. And I mean, it's obviously a show that's inspired by Evangelion. It's supposed to be kind of a homage or a love letter to Evangelion. And it's made by a lot of the same production team that made Gurren Lagann. And in episodes 19 and 20, not only does it just become a shittier version of those two shows, just like spoilers for Darling in the Franxx if you're going to watch it, but like the anti-spirals show up from Top. Like, well, not quite, they're not called anti-spiral, but the equivalent, you thought it was this bad guy? Jokes, it was these space aliens the whole time. And same with like the twist behind what the mechs are in Evangelion, same twist. It was just bad. It was really lazy writing.
And how far through it are they? Is that like...
There's only 4 more episodes. Yeah. It's just...
So they just did nothing new?
Exactly. They did nothing new.
Right.
And there was a whole bunch of world building that was kind of interesting at the beginning. You're like, oh, I wonder what's going on here. This is really interesting. And then they just do... Episode 19 is just an exposition dump episode. And they try to have a semblance of a character arc within it. But it's really, really, really lazily written. Mother's Basement did a pretty good video on why that episode in particular is really bad. But like, for example, there's a guy who's like, he's a doctor from before the post-apocalypse, and he's studying cloning, and he's getting fired from his university because he has no morals, and he says, well, of course I have no morals. I'm an atheist. Just looks at the camera, winks. And then later on, he's getting pulled up for other stuff, and he's just like, well, what do you expect? I'm an atheist. And it's like, okay, cool.
All right.
It's really lazy writing, and he's the grossest character. He was really interesting for the whole show, up until now. Up until they just were like, he's just one-dimensional now. This is all he is.
Is Darling in the Franxx like Do you reckon they're trying to appeal to a wider audience than Gurren Lagann got? How popular is Gurren Lagann? Is it like
it has a niche following? Yeah. It's it's decently high ranked.
So do you reckon the people who you said it was sort of the same sort of production team or whatever?
Yeah, it's made by Gurren Lagann was made by Gainax, but a lot of that team split off and formed Trigger, which is they've made a bunch of other anime since then.
Do you reckon they could be like, we really enjoyed Gurren Lagann, it didn't get as popular mainstream as we...
Gurren Lagann is so much better on so many levels.
But my point is, like, do you think that they might be like just reusing the same sort of story of the Spirals kind of thing as a way of saying, hey, maybe this will get more following than...
But they could have executed it so much. Like, I've seen them execute it really well in one example, and it's honestly incredibly lazy. There's no foreshadowing, because at least the anti-spirals are kind of foreshadowed by King Spiral. Yeah. But there's no foreshadowing, really lazy story writing, and the art direction is still good. Still some beautiful designs.
Is it different writers?
Oh yeah, different writers.
Right. So it's just like the art team, so they... essentially, that's the same.
Yep. But no, I rescind the recommendation. Don't watch it. It's a 6. It's a 6 out of 10.
Right.
Not an 8, which is what I thought it was. So...
And is it just the first season? Are they doing...
I don't know if they're going to do another season, but the first season hasn't finished airing yet.
Have you heard about what other people are thinking of it? Like, have you seen online what people are saying about it?
It's mixed. There are a group of people that I'm in that camp where it's like, this is just a shit show now.
Right.
There are a bunch of people who didn't like it to begin with, because of course. But it's still really highly ranked on Mal, which is a good indicator.
Could you maybe watch it for the first 20 episodes or something? Is there any point
true.
where you could stop watching?
There is a climax at about episode 16 where there's a big fight and some stuff that you've been waiting to happen just happens. So you could stop watching it there, and it would be
consider it a season.
It would be fine, but there are still a lot of questions that are left unanswered, and you would feel like, I'll just watch the next one. I'm just saying, don't do it. Just look at some of the character designs and enjoy them.
That's what happened to me with Lost. For reasons, I'd gotten through the first 3 seasons and then had to stop watching because of time or whatever. And then everybody I spoke to was like, excellent, you should definitely stop there, because that's when we recommend people stop. And I was like, yeah, but there's another 3 seasons, and I've got so many questions. And so I eventually carried on watching, and I was like, damn, I should have stopped at 3.
Yeah, Lost was a big waste of time.
I did stop around season 2.
Oh, yeah.
And
don't go back to it.
Alright.
Yeah.
Is that all you wanted to follow up?
Yeah, I wanted to make a PSA, make sure that if anybody heard me recommend it, because I was pretty into it. I'd only seen like a couple episodes when I recommended it, but now that I've seen more, don't do it.
I think I remember you saying at the time, like, this is not my official recommendation for this week, because I haven't seen as much of it, or whatever.
Well, now I definitely don't feel comfortable recommending it.
My only follow-up was, now that we're officially done with DBZ, guess which Father of the Year never followed up on his promise to take his son fishing?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
never happened. I said I'd keep a track of it, and then I realised it was in my notes when I was finalising on my DBZ notes.
He
came across
decided to stay in space for a bit.
It was just like, he was like, nah, I'm going to stay, pretend to my son that I'm dead for the next year. But anyway, on with that now.
So let's launch into Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, abridged. Wait, are we going to go with abridged or annotated?
I like abridged.
Abridged. Nausicaä of the Valley of the Wind, abridged.
This is set 1,000 years after some global apocalyptic event that we later find out to be called the 7 Days of Fire. Humanity is on the verge of extinction and is forced to survive alongside a sprawling toxic jungle filled with poisonous spores and excessively overgrown insects. It begins with a girl in a gas mask carrying out experiments in that jungle, and she salvages some useful materials from an enormous shed husk of a woodlouse-esque bug called an ohm. She saves another explorer from one of these creatures that's chasing him down, and we learn that she has a way with them that doesn't require to use violence. She's just got like this druidic kind of nature. She's at one with the creatures. She, obviously Nausicaä, and this man that she's saved, Lord Yupa, both then return to her Valley of the Wind, which is the kingdom that we find out that she is the princess to. And an old blind soothsayer there gives us some exposition about the jungle poisons and the fact that there are 2 other warring human kingdoms, Pejite and Tolmekia. She says...
I thought it was pronounced Pejite.
Pejite, maybe.
Yeah.
not sure. Pejit and Tolmekia, let's say. She says that there's a tapestry that prophesizes a blue-clad warrior surrounded in gold, saving them all from this horrendous life. At that point, there's a giant storm, and a gigantic cargo ship crash lands in the storm, and it belongs to the warmongering Tolmekians, and it was carrying a kidnapped Pejit princess and some secret cargo which the dying princess tells Nausicaä to destroy. A big bug climbs out of the wreckage, and that's when we learn that if they do attack these bugs, they've got a way to call the other bugs to their aid, and it causes mischief for them. Obviously, they can't go around killing them. Nausicaä rolls her animal handling check, and she lures it away peacefully. Lord Yupa realizes that the cargo the dying princess was talking about is an embryo of a giant warrior, quote-unquote. One of these gigantic humanoid bioweapons that was used to incinerate the Earth 1,000 years ago, and that's why it was called the 7 Days of Fire, because they can blast fire beams from their humanoid mouths. Tolmekian warships arrive at the valley, and they quickly occupy the valley, and they take Nausicaä hostage after killing her bedridden father, the king. Lord Yupa finds Nausicaa's secret garden, where we learn that it's actually the topsoil of the jungle that's poisoned, not the plants themselves. Tolmekian princess, Kushana, the sort of main antagonist, she takes her hostages onto an airship convoy towards the Tolmekian capital, but as they're on their way, they get shot down and destroyed by a lone Pejit gunman, Asbel. Nausicaa and Kushana escape, and they land in the jungle, and Nausicaa flies off to find the pilot and saves him by crashing through the ground into a cavern below.
So we should maybe point out, just if you haven't seen it, the jungle is all fungus. That's the big kicker that's killing people. They can't leave certain areas of the world because if the spores get into your lungs, they poison you, and then you slowly turn to stone. It's implied, or you die.
I didn't catch that. No, she just said I would. Because did you watch it subbed or dubbed?
I watched it subbed.
I think I watched it dubbed, if I remember rightly.
Right, yeah, no, the dub is really bad, apparently.
Oh, okay. I wish I'd known that. She says in the dub that if I didn't have this gas mask on while I'm doing these experiments, I'll be dead within 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But she doesn't say turn to stone.
There's no, she doesn't say that. There's one guy later on, one of the old men, who takes off his glove or something, and he's got a bit of a weird-looking hand, and he says, I've got the same sickness that
the king does.
That the king does. And in a little while I'll be turned to stone, but Nausicaa thinks that my hands are beautiful, kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
So, but the point is though that there's these huge sprawling forests of fungus, and that's what's killing people.
Yeah.
But bugs seem to just totally love it. They're just like,
sucking down that fungus spore. So she comes to in this cavern underground, under the jungle, and it turns out the air and the water below ground is actually clean. And the jungle up above is actually a filter for the toxins of the earth. And so everything gets filtered through, falls into the underground caverns, and it's clean by that point. It turns out the bugs must have evolved to keep the humans from destroying the filtering trees before they can do their job fixing the planet up. So the bugs are like protectors of this forest, which is, it seems like a toxic, horrible wasteland, but it's actually doing the opposite. It's actually cleaning up the toxicity that was left behind by the humans' war. Meanwhile, the giant warrior is being incubated, and a lone spore, has managed to infect the valley forest. So the valley people burn down the entire forest as a preemptive defence, and then they return and revolt against the occupying Tolmekians. Nausicaa and Asbel, they arrive at Pejit to find that it has been destroyed by the Tolmekians. They learn that the remaining Pejits plan to lure a stampede of Ohms, these giant woodlouse creatures, into the valley to cripple the Tolmekian forces, just by trampling them. And Nausicaa obviously objects to this, as you'd expect, and she is imprisoned for it. Asbel's mum is grateful for her to save her son, and so she helps her. She gets into the cell and swaps her into a blue dress so that she can escape unnoticed. Nausicaa finds that the herd of Ohms is being coaxed into stampeding by using a wounded baby Ohm as bait for them to follow. Nausicaa injures herself while saving it and nurtures it.
When I was watching it, she got swapped from a blue dress into a pink dress, and then later on, when the blue dress is important, her clothes magically changed colour, and it was a bad editing error.
What? Oh, really?
What?
Did you notice that too?
Yeah, I was going to say I thought it was a pink dress, but I think it turned blue because of the baby Ohm's blood pouring out. And the pink took on the dye of
That makes sense. Yeah. But in the version that we watched, I guess she's wearing a blue dress.
She's wearing a blue dress.
I sort of assumed it was the colour because
Yeah.
it was blue blood.
That totally makes sense. I was super confused though because there's one shot she's wearing a pink dress and the next shot she's wearing a blue dress.
Sure, yeah.
And I was like, I see what you're doing. Okay. Anyways,
so she nurtures this baby Ohm, which has got like just missiles sticking out of it.
no, wait, they were just getting off the ship, and we interrupted you.
No, yes. So Nausicaä injures herself while saving this baby Ohm.
It was pretty gross.
It was gross. Yeah, it's as a baby, it's about 6 foot tall to its kind of shoulder blades, if you want to call it that. So she's like trying to push it away from this acid pool that it's trying to get into to get back to its parents. And she's like, no, stay out. And she slips into the acid pool while she's trying to save it. Eventually, she manages to save it, injuring herself in the process. The stampede still doesn't stop. Unfortunately, it doesn't seem to work immediately. It plows through the valley into the Tolmekian troops. It almost destroys everything in its wake until eventually Kushana, the evil antagonist, she arrives with this giant warrior. She ran off to hatch it, to force it to live before it was fully mature.
Yeah.
It devastates some of the herd with its fire beam before it's clear that it melts away useless. It's
half
not ready.
cooked.
Yeah, it's half cooked. It melts away in like the most grotesque scene imaginable.
Yeah.
All these like huge chunks of its flesh just sloughing off onto the ground. It's
a good kids
disgusting.
movie.
Yeah. Nausicaa gets trampled almost to death by the herd as she tries to give the baby back. But they eventually stop, and the baby Ohm kind of nuzzles up to her and says to the adults, "Hey, help her out," kind of thing. They all surround her lifeless body, and they spread out golden tendrils from their face and lift her up and heal her.
I do have to take umbrage with that. They're clearly tentacles.
Tendrils, tentacles.
Clearly tentacles.
Okay.
Japan.
Right,
I see. The old lady soothsayer realizes that Nausicaa, in her new blue dress and now in a field of golden tendrils, is the prophesied one. Peace comes to the world, the valley people replant all the forests, and eventually all the toxins are gone, and it ends off with a gas mask sitting on the ground, indicating that people don't need them anymore. And that's
nice.
that.
That was that. What did you guys think of it on scoring? Or should we talk about other stuff first?
Yeah, I think like just an overall thoughts first. What were your overall thoughts of it? Do you like it or dislike it? Which would be like thumbs up, thumbs down? What do we?
I enjoyed it.
Yeah,
out of 10.
Out of 10
or negative 10. I don't think this is a negative.
Because of the scale system. So we're not doing Dragon Balls.
No.
Okay.
We needed something else
gone.
for this one, didn't we? Didn't think of that. There wasn't like a thing that they had to collect like lots of.
I think it's a bit easier if we just keep it consistent.
It's hard because it's anime and I've come off a lot of bad anime, so I'm wanting to give it a lot. I think for me, I enjoyed it. I thought it was quite long. That's like my one criticism.
Yeah.
But I think that's just pacing back then was different. I would give it an 8 out of 10.
Oh,
fair enough.
Okay, I'd probably give it like a 6 maybe, because I enjoyed it overall, so it's in the higher half, but ultimately it was kind of forgettable for me. It was maybe it would have been better if I'd watched a subbed version, but I don't know, it was a nice story, but nothing special.
For me, it was a strong 6 to a light 7. Probably more 7 actually. So yeah, it's in that range.
Yeah. It's apparently more well known than I expected, because I raised it to a couple people when I got talking to them about the podcast, and they said, "Oh, what are you watching next?" I said, "Well, this week we've watched Nausicaä, The Valley of the Wind," and they went, "Oh, I love that movie." And I was like, I didn't expect anyone would have heard of it, but it's how little I know about anime, I guess.
Yeah. Ghibli films, everybody,
yeah,
if they have any kind of knowledge of anime other than peripheral, or even Ghibli's pretty mainstream. They have the box set at JB Hi-Fi, or the Hayao Miyazaki box set for $300.
How many films is it?
Like
roughly,
7 films or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. That doesn't seem like enough.
And they're not
for
making
300.
any more, right? Ghibli films.
I don't think so. It's really hard to tell because he keeps retiring and then not retiring.
I think they are producing one right now.
Are they?
Yeah.
What is it?
I'm not too sure, but I've heard that they are producing one.
See, the thing is, I actually think that Ghibli as a studio isn't that great. I think that Hayao Miyazaki as a director is the thing that's awesome.
Yeah.
Because they've got some non-Ghibli films. Some of them are okay, but a lot of them aren't as good as Ghibli.
Right.
Hayao Miyazaki, so that's hard to say.
The last, well, like what I've heard is that, so he retired.
Again.
And then there's a good documentary of him coming out of retirement to make a short film about, I think it's like a caterpillar or like a sea caterpillar or something like that. And it's his first 3D project.
Oh, shit.
Yeah. And they follow him sort of working alongside. It's a really cool documentary because he goes into the office and like all the chairs are up on the desks and stuff. Like it's totally empty and abandoned. And he just like... he starts himself like just getting shit done and pulling the chairs down and like making a little space for these like graduates to come in with their computers and start doing 3D. And you get to see his process of telling them how bad animators and they're unnatural, and 3D is unnatural to him.
It's like Whiplash, but animation.
Right, yeah.
That's my style.
And
not quite my style. Not quite my style. Try again.
I don't know if you've seen it, but
sure as an easel at him.
There's one scene in it where they're going over his past and he is looking over an animator's work and he says to the animator, he's like, essentially like, this is rubbish. What are you doing? Fix this now. And if you don't fix this, like, just leave, just walk out. Like, he comes across as really brutal.
What's the documentary called?
Can't remember the name of it.
Fantastic.
But there was another scene that came out of
this
it.
section brought to you by Curtis recommends things I can't remember.
That's my life story. There's another scene, and I think it went animation viral anyway, where he is watching some graduates come from a school where they've made a 3D zombie that's been animated by programming, like it hasn't been touched by an animator. So crazy. That it's essentially like this hunk of meat that's like crawling across the ground, and they think it's real, a real breakthrough in animation because the computer's animating. And Hayao Miyazaki gets up and calls it a disgrace to humanity.
Wait, I feel that sounded vaguely familiar to even me.
Right, yeah, I think it got quite popular.
His thing is that he hates the current generation of anime. He says that anime at the moment is made by people who like anime, not people who like people, and that's why it has no soul.
Right. He talked about a friend of his dying and was like, you don't know true pain. Like, essentially. Yeah. You know, like, you don't know. He
really doesn't like people who only get, like, they become absorbed in the industry. He's like, no, you need to be, like, experiencing shit because you're just animating nothing.
Right, yeah.
I can understand that, I suppose. Yeah. I can kind of get that. You've got to understand the human experience, I guess, to tell stories about humans who are experiencing things.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh, is this... We keep talking about it as a Ghibli film. Do the fans accept this as Ghibli, even though it was technically made before?
Yeah, so I was going to bring that up as well. So technically this was made before the foundation of the Ghibli studio, but because it has so much of the same production team, it usually gets classed as a Ghibli film. Right. And also in the collections of Ghibli films, it gets included.
It's always included in collections.
So technically not a Ghibli, but...
Everybody accepts it as an honorary Ghibli film.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
I was going to talk about maybe some of the art direction and character writing. I thought that... So this is a kid's film, I think. It's kind of hard to tell. But some of the characters in this were really interesting. So, I mean...
which isn't allowed to be in a kid's film.
Well, no. I was just... I don't know. I thought maybe for the time as well. Like, this is like 1986 or 89, I think.
Yeah, I can't
87.
remember now. It was 80s.
Late 80s. But some of the writing I just thought was a little bit more complex than I was expecting, which kind of threw me back a little bit.
84,
thank you. So, mid-80s. But, just so for example, we got Nausicaä, and I think that she's a pretty strong female protagonist, which I don't think was incredibly common in the 80s. but she's competent and she's
For sure, yeah.
intelligent and
loved by her people.
Loved by her people.
Yeah, it comes across quite strongly that she's quite a popular princess amongst the valley.
I don't think that she's very weak either. Like, it's not like she's not just I am strong and she's not a Mary Sue. She has a lot of heart. I felt so that like on a base level she was really cool.
I feel like that came through at the start when they sort of go into the village and she's there fixing up the windmill. Like she's
getting
with the people. Like yeah,
doesn't mind getting her hands dirty even though she's daughter of the dying king.
Right.
I just thinking about it now though, I think that she doesn't have any sort of character arc. She starts that way and ends that way. So we don't really see any character development of her.
No.
I think she's kind of like she's pretty gifted, like straight away. Like she's got this like ability to connect with nature that no one else does. It's kind of like her story amongst people. Like
everybody else has a character arc except for her.
The story is how the world interacts and she's just the method by which we see it all happening kind of thing. Like, we don't need her to have the arc because we're seeing everything changing around her maybe.
Yeah, and it's more like the story of the people, like humans are fighting against each other.
Yeah.
They're wanting to fight nature, and she's just saying, chill the fuck out.
just chill out, bro.
Got it all
I've
wrong.
got this secret garden underneath the castle that I've been watering with water from underneath.
It's from the deepest well in the village.
And it turns out that it's actually not the plants at all, so just chill out.
Everybody needs to chill out. My other favourite character, and I can't remember his name, but he was the right hand to the princess from Temecula.
Oh, yeah.
I really liked him. I thought he was a character that in most things, or in a lot of things, wouldn't get any development at all. He would just be like, oh, yes, ma'am, yes, ma'am. But there's one part where she gets a bit of a fake out where, we know that she's not dead, but he thinks that she's dead. And he's like...
You can see his power-hungry nature. Now I'm in charge.
Well, he goes, I don't know whether I'm being tempted by the gods or trapped. And you can see him just contemplating overthrowing it and totally taking the reins.
Yeah, I did like that.
And then as soon as he hears that she's not dead, he's like, well, it was a trap all along. And he just goes back to getting it done. I really like that little bit of characterization that they had for that guy.
Yeah.
I thought that was really well done. Like, no one comes across, and I think that's the thing with like Studio Ghibli films, is that the villains and antagonists are never like doing evil out of evil's sake. They're always just striving to
accomplish whatever goal they have.
Yeah, because Princess Kushana, she's not evil for the sake of it either. She's a military might, and she's saying, alright, I need to unify the 3 remaining human kingdoms so that we can all tackle this forest and we'll destroy it and we'll burn it to the ground. And now that I have this giant warrior, we can do that.
Yeah.
Because they're so amazing at fighting and everything.
Yeah.
But she's just, everybody else is like, we did this 1,000 years ago and this what got us into this state.
And then they show hints of characters, like characters' greeds and, like power.
Yeah.
Thirstiness.
There's some really strong character writing, which I like in my films. And I thought that the art direction was very 80s, but I kind of got a kick out of that. The costume design was just, it reeked of like 80s fantasy novel covers.
Instantly, this is an apocalypse world. They've got the gas masks that kind of make them look like droopy dogs with the big bits at the side, and they've got the big thick furs on to keep them. It
was cool though. I totally loved it.
It was cool.
I feel like that's what differentiates it kind of from most fantasy films. Like a lot of the 80s fantasy was like women wearing like next to nothing because they're women, and like Conan the Barbarian and things like that. I don't know if that's 70s or 80s.
I think it's 80s.
But yeah, like the character designs were I think it's the first film you start to see like studio Hayao Miyazaki's sort of characters come through.
I do think, in terms of the art, that they could have chosen a different colour for her pants. Because she's wearing skin-tight pants and a jacket, a blue jacket that like looks like a short skirt under the belt. and her skin tight pants are the same colour as her skin, so it looks like she's bare-assed for the whole thing.
I clicked halfway through the film that they were pants. I thought they were just like, I guess they're just showing ass shots.
Yeah, because that's what I thought at first. I was like, this is the what do they call it, the fan service, and then I'm like, no, she's wearing pants. Yeah, it's a really poorly coloured.
That was pretty surprising.
But yeah, there wasn't really any fan service other than something that could be a butt.
fan service is particular to certain anime, I think. It's not in everything, but yeah. I also really liked the bug designs. I thought they were really good. The I didn't actually like that much, but all of the other little, relatively little bugs, they're all still huge. They were all really cool. Yeah, no, and the art was beautiful. I mean, the paint, like, I think it was painted, Curtis?
The background?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just beautiful. I really, really enjoyed it.
Yeah, there's a flying tapeworm at one point. That's really cool. It's got the pincers on the front and a stinger on the tail. And it's well thought out.
The airships as well, I thought. Clunky and like they shouldn't fly, but they do, and it feels so nice.
That's a staple of Ghibli films whenever they do something with airships, not airplanes, because in Porco Rosso that just has planes, like biplanes.
Right.
But every time they do airships, they always make them these bulky, unnatural looking fucking things that should not fly in any way, shape or form. I love it. It's fantastic.
It's real fun.
Yeah, it is really long though. The third act and the end of the second act really drag. And I did kind of feel like they could have resolved the Tamekian Princess's arc a little bit. Because she... really quickly, the design for the Ancient Warriors... really cool as well. Anyways, but
although they did remind me a lot of Cacao from Tree of Might, with the pink sloughing gooey face. That's what the kid has hated most about that episode. I wondered what you thought of him.
I thought it suited the role of that character
for sure.
But at the end, the Tamekian princess tries to annihilate a bunch of ohms, and she kills I don't know how many, but heaps. And then, through the power of love and understanding, Nausicaä brings peace to the valley. And I kind of expected there to be a little bit, and I don't know why, because this doesn't ever happen in a Ghibli film, but I expected there to be a little bit where she's like, you know what, I was wrong. Shouldn't have done that, and I can see that now, but they don't really address it. She's kind of just like, I guess I'll go home.
I can't recall what happened. Does she just leave?
She just leaves,
I feel like there could have been like a conflict or a confrontation or something.
I think I've noticed that just it never happens in Ghibli films. Right. Like any Ghibli film. Like Porco Rosso, which is another Hayao Miyazaki film, that has the biggest non-ending ever. It's so crazy. So it's like about a pilot, right? And there's like a whole race or a dogfight that he has to do. And right at the end he wins... and then flies off into the sunset and leaves like 4 people that he'd been building like a relationship with.
Right.
And you're like, what the fuck? And then there's like a big narrative thing where they kind of imply that he came back, but you never get confirmed. Like there's a woman who loved him, and he's just like, bye. And it implies that he came back, but you don't get to see it.
Right.
And it's a weird feeling of dissatisfaction where you're like, I would have liked to see. I was invested. I would have liked to see that. It's just an interesting. Different take on storytelling, I guess.
Another thing that registered to me that it was a long movie is that Nausicaä becomes like a prisoner of war essentially twice.
True. Yeah, it's never fun.
2 different nations take a prisoner. She has to escape from both of them. She escapes on her glider. We haven't mentioned the glider yet. She's a like super boss at this weird like personal one-person glider thing. Think of if you've seen, is it the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire? The Green Goblin's on like a personal glider machine. It's kind of like that, but cooler, and it's just like pure white, and the tips fold up when it's not being used. And she's just like the boss at it. She can do flips and tricks and all this sort of stuff.
On the note of the glider, a guy made one that works.
I heard.
Yeah. And Ghibli wanted to fund him, and he was like, nope. Because if this goes wrong, this will make your studio look bad, and I really don't want to dishonor your company. Really but he did it, and he made it work.
Wow.
So that's really cool.
That is cool. I'll have to look that up.
I was watching it thinking, no way in hell. Like
it works pretty inconsistently. Sometimes she needs to jump off a cliff to get it to go, and sometimes it just kind of starts to levitate.
Yeah.
It's a cool design though.
It's got like a glowing blue engine thing beneath it.
I think that's kind of why animation's cool.
You can do whatever the fuck you want.
It's believable in the movie.
Yeah.
But in the physics in real life, you're dead pretty quick on that thing.
That's how she saves the guy at the start. She sees this giant ohm burst out of the forest, and it's chasing down this guy on is it an ostrich? Because it looked a lot like the ostrich horses from Avatar. The ones that the firebenders
She
ride.
said, look, it's a fox squirrel. So I guess it's a similar kind of idea. Maybe they even took that idea of mixing two animals from Nausicaä.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. So this Lord Yupa's riding one of these gigantic ostrich horse type things, and he's got another one behind him, and she has to use the glider to get in front of the ohm and kind of like calm it down. She uses some stun grenades to stop it and calm it down. It's pretty cool.
These riding on birds things.
Yeah.
That's like, what's the one in Final Fantasy?
Chocobo. Yeah.
Is that an anime thing? Riding birds?
Maybe. It's a Final Fantasy thing.
Right.
Because now it's in this one, Final Fantasy and Avatar, and they all use it.
Right.
Chocobos are straight up street chickens, though. I mean, you just ride those yellow bitches. I love chocobos. Oh man.
I have been watching Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Yeah.
And then I watched this pretty much right after watching an episode of Star Trek. And the moment Lord Yupa starts speaking, like a couple of moments it's Patrick Stewart. I'm like, oh, holy shit! It took me a couple of lines for me to be like, this is Jean-Luc Picard captain of the USS Enterprise, and he's talking to her and all this nonsense. And I had to look it up. It is Patrick Stewart, which was funny because a couple of episodes before that in Star Trek, he mentions a race of aliens that once stabbed him. He was like, oh yes, I was a rebellious child. I once started a bar fight with some Nausicaans. And apparently they did actually take the word Nausicaa from this, because these guys took it from Greek mythology. Nausicaa. Nausicaa's in the Greek mythology. So,
right.
Can't remember if she's a satyr or something, or she
seduces. He made this into a 4-part graphic novel series as well, or manga.
Yeah, but he got the name Nausicaa from Greek mythology. I can't remember what her story was, but
I read that the movie was adapted from his manga.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what I meant.
Yeah.
If I didn't say that, whoops.
Yeah.
The last thing is I thought it was interesting. You know, this is a common thing if you've seen enough Japanese media from like the 80s and a little bit earlier. Whenever they try and market it in the West, they feel like they have to do a really hard sell and try to be like, oh, it's not Japanese, it's not made. Because when it came out in the West, it was called Warriors of the Wind, and if you look at the cover for it, it looks like He-Man. It's not. And then it's weird because then you watch the movie and it's not He-Man, so you're just going to be confused by it.
Let's get our audience by misleading them.
Yeah.
It's super bizarre when they do that. Like, if you've seen any...
They fucked it up so much that Hayao Miyazaki, he was like angry about it, and he I can't remember, I read it on IMDb. It was like the people who cut it and fucked it up, they later tried to get further films from him, and he was like, no. And they were like, "Come on!" and I hear he sent one of them a katana with etched into it "no cuts." It was like, yeah, I'll allow you to do it, but you will not cut it in any way. You will air the one that I give you, kind of thing.
That's
good.
That's pretty badass.
It is, because they fucked it up so much that they like made the Ohms like the bad guys, and it was all about nature, and she was against the nature and stuff like that. It was. I don't know how they managed to mess it up that
badly. It's been re-edited.
Yeah.
I imagine a bunch of like cocaine heads, it's the 80s and like fucking.
We've got no movies coming out this week. What are the Japs got? Oh man,
what was with the Pokemon? Can we address that? Because Lord Yupa, after she saves his life and they go back to the valley together, and he has a very Gandalf entrance to the Shire, and everybody's like, "Hey, it's your Lord Yupa!"
It's true.
But he has a
fox, and everybody's got like this massive, big, bushy mustache. Everybody in the valley.
I did like that they all have the same mustache.
Yeah, everybody has the same big, bushy mustache. And then he like unzips his coat, and he saved a little animal from the forest. And he says, "I thought it was a human baby, so I had to shoot the ohm to save it." And he gives her this thing, which I can only describe as a cross between Pikachu and Eevee.
My girlfriend thought it was Pikachu.
Yeah, it's the coloration and markings of Pikachu, but it's a four-legged fox-like thing like Eevee. So definitely that's what it is.
It's just
and
marketing.
He gave her it, and then it like never really was anything in the movie.
It's just a mascot. It's just the mascot for the movie.
It was just kind of weird and a little bit unbelievable because he brings it out and it's a really shy and flighty and it shows like that she's good with animals because she lets it bite her and she's like, see, there's nothing to be afraid of. I'm not going to hurt you. Yeah. And then from that point on, it's just like inseparable from her. Yeah, she runs like the next scene is when the big airship crashes and she runs into flaming wreckage with this flighty little jungle animal and it's just like happily on her shoulder the whole time.
Oh, don't worry about it.
Yeah, it was kind of like, that's weird and that shouldn't be in there, but I guess I understand it.
It is, I suppose, like your marketing,
gotta have a plush.
It's on her shoulder, like in the shots and the.
I guess that's another thing from anime is having a mascot, a mascot character.
Right.
So even if it's not Pokemon or something, they'll usually not usually, but there will often be something that is like, gotta make a toy out of this.
I think like the two story plots points sort of it served purposes it served was to show that she's good with nature, which was already established by her like getting rid of the arm and sending
this
it back.
Gigantic building sized creature she manages to slow down,
and it guiding Lord Yupa to her secret science lab.
It does that at some point. It says, "Oh, you're here. Where must she be?" And it reveals a secret wall that you can go down. I noticed that there was an interesting possible coincidence that the soothsayer, the blind soothsayer lady, was called Ubaba, and in DBZ the soothsayer fortune teller is called Baba, and then in Russian folklore there's an old hag called Baba Yaga.
Right.
And I wondered what this Baba was and why it was through everything.
It just means witch.
I don't
know if it means witch in Japanese, but it's just.
I didn't know if it was a coincidence that any of you knew anything about. Because as soon as I heard it, Ubaba was the name of this witch. I'm like, what the fuck is it? Every witch ever in all folklore seems to be named Baba for some reason.
Yeah.
How cool was the badass fight when the Tolmekians kill her father and she turns out?
That was pretty well animated.
And she like goes violent for the first time and you see her snap.
Yeah.
And she just like wastes all these guys. I thought it was a really interesting mix up between like futuristic and apocalyptic, like because they've got guns.
Yeah,
they've got guns, but they're also wearing plate mail and swords.
Yeah, it's a good mix.
Yeah, it's a really
mix.
cool mix. And so these Tolmekians are all in plate mail and with swords out, and a few of them have a couple of rifles, but they're not ready for it. So as they bring the rifles up to shoot her, she like dodges to the side and then smashes them in the head with this staff that she's got. And within seconds, she's just like wasted everybody in there. And then she goes to stab another one of them. And then Lord Yupa just jumps in the way and gets stabbed in the arm.
Yeah.
Which I thought was really cool. And he's like holding it and the blood's dripping down from his arm and he's like slammed himself in between the fight and he's like, just chill out. I know you've just stabbed me in the arm, but I'm willing to forgive it.
That is a really good scene. I didn't forget about that.
That was a really cool scene.
The other thing that we kind of missed was so Nausicaä goes into the forest and she finds a dead ohm. And they hint at it that they use the dead bodies of insects because they have chitin plating and they're so big and the chitin is so thick that they use it for building materials. Like all these guys wearing armor, it's not steel, it's chitin.
Yeah,
which is cool.
That is cool, very clever. Because she brings out some sword and she says she tries to like chip the armor of this dead husk. And it chips her sword instead. And she says, wow, it even chips. And then she gives
ceramic, it says in Japanese.
No, I don't think it says that. I think she gives like some adamantium kind of like mythical metal. Even chips so-and-so. And so she like breaks off one of the eye socket sort of things of this bug and she uses it as light as a feather and it's really good as like glass, I suppose. Good to see through. Yeah, really cool. One thing I didn't like that I want to bring up is the ending, really, with the cheesy Ohm reviving and her like the Ohms are like bugs and they're rampaging bugs, but they're said to be like super intelligent and they also seem to have like prophecy something to them because at one point she's in the jungle and she like one of them comes up to her and she just walks up to its nose effectively and it reaches out these golden tentacles and it wraps her in these tentacles and then she starts to have a prophecy and that's how she knows where the pilot is. And that's not fully explained.
I think it was more that they were communicating telepathically with the small amount of like language, like that's all they were capable of communicating, because they weren't just like, this is where the pilot is. They did it through weird imagery, and she was like, oh, okay.
And then at the end, she's like pretty much dead. She's been trampled by a herd of these massive building-sized creatures. And then they just reach them out and lift her up, and she's healed and revived and lifted into the air. And I don't know, I found it just too cheesy, really. But I suppose that's personal preference.
Fair enough,
yeah. It was dragging, and I was just kind of keen for it to end, but I understand that criticism.
Do you reckon Om was because of the meditation noise?
No idea.
Because that would be interesting.
Right.
Like, because she was all like, peace with nature and kumbaya and Om.
Probably.
That works.
Cool. So that's Nausicaä of Valley of the Wind, abridged, but almost as long. It's pretty good. I think you should check it out. But for now, let's go into something cooler than recommendations. But that's what it is. It's recommendations. Whenever we watch a movie, I recommend a movie. And this week, I want to recommend Perfect Blue, which was one that I'd heard about for ages and kind of just put off watching. And I knew a little bit about it. I'd seen a couple images, and I had a completely different idea of what the movie was before I started watching it. I didn't even know what genre it was. But holy shit, it was so good. It's set in the 90s, and it's very, very 90s, but that's fine. It's set in, I think it came out in 94 or 97, can't remember which. But it's about a pop idol named, I can't remember her name, fuck, it's been too long. Anyways, there's a pop idol, and she is with this group of two other pop idol girls, and she's really successful, but her manager wants to push her into acting. And she kind of just is going along with it, like, yeah, no, it'll be a good move for my career, even though she's always wanted to be a singer, and she's finally, like, successful at doing her dream job, but her director was like, oh, there'll be more money in acting. Oh, you don't want... pop idols never last forever. No. And it very quickly devolves into an awesome horror thriller about... It's double. There's a guy who starts stalking her. He's a massive fan of her when she's a pop idol.
Yeah. And
then she goes into acting, and it implies that he feels betrayed, like she would never do this. And you know how... Miley Cyrus had this to a lesser extent, where people thought kind of that she was this really innocent teen idol because she was on that Hannah Montana show. So you know, they have an outward appearance or like persona, and when she starts going into acting, that all kind of drops, and so he feels betrayed by it.
People can feel entitled to a celebrity.
Yeah. He's like, you're not really this person, right? Sending her hate mail and death threats and all this kind of stuff. So there's this guy who's stalking her and starts sending her death threats, which is really well done. It's super thrilling. I mean, as soon as the second act kicks off, I was literally like on the edge of my seat. I was so intense. The second half of the horror is her having this mental breakdown because she doesn't want to be an actress, and she just has to be, and her manager just keeps pushing her to do stuff that she doesn't want to do. And it's like, it's a kind of a comment on Japanese culture, where they, you know, if they feel like they're obligated to do something, or they want to do what's expected of them.
Like external pressures
and living up to expectations.
Right.
And she, and because she's getting all these messages, and like, it's not just this one stalker guy, there's other people being like, oh, you know, the real idol would never do this. She creates a separate, kind of like Black Swan, I guess, a separate manifestation of herself that's taunting her. Like, oh, I'm the real idol, and you just let me do it from now on, and it'll be fun. And she starts having like weird hallucinations where she doesn't even remember what she did that day.
This sounds too creepy. I don't like this.
So it's not good for Robert. I'm not going to take it any further. It has an awesome twist at the end.
It reminds me of Black Swan with What's-Her-Face and What's-Her-Face.
Yeah.
Mila Kunis and
I think What's-Her-Face and What's-Her-Face.
I didn't like that because it's psychological, and it's like parts where she's like, oh, did I do that? And then like she looks in the mirror and her mirror image does something else or winks at her, and it's like,
Natalie Portman and Mila Kunis.
Because if you run away from a chainsaw murderer or whatever, you can always get away, or you can incapacitate them.
Yeah.
If you are the crazy one, if everything that's going wrong is in your head,
Yeah.
Like if you're imagining shit and you don't know what's real or not, then you can't run away from that. You can't barricade yourself in a room.
And that terrifies you.
Yeah, I don't like it.
Okay, so it's not for Robert, and I knew that it wouldn't be. I won't say any more other than it has some just awesome animation in some parts. Just really impressive, top-notch stuff.
Cool.
And for the time, like not quite as impressive as Paprika, but does some stuff where I'm like, cool.
Yeah.
Really cool twists and turns, and a gripping ride from me. I would give it a 10. I really enjoyed it. I had a fantastic time with it. So that's Perfect Blue. Oh, and people have asked why is it called Perfect Blue, because there's literally no mention of blue in the movie at all, and blue in Japanese culture is a symbol or connotated with happiness, so it's like about perfect happiness, and that's kind of what the macro story is about, is her trying to be happy in her career.
Right.
It's fantastic. It's really good. I can't recommend it enough.
What would you say happiness is? What would you
Yellow.
think? Yeah, I was going to say yellow. Would you say the same? If I said what color is happiness?
I have no idea.
It's weird, eh? Yeah. Like I hadn't thought about it, but when you said blue, I was like, that's wrong.
Right.
I'd never thought about it, and then I was like, what colour's happiness? And I think maybe it's just because the yellow smiley face, maybe?
Yeah.
I know blue isn't happiness because
Sad.
I went to a shitty animation school and they had blue walls, and we used to call them the blue walls of death because it felt like it was draining my soul.
I would think that it would be, because like blue's cold and depressing.
Yeah, it is.
It's supposed to be. It's also connotated with relaxation in the West, and also reliability,
Blue skies,
which is why there are a lot of banks that are blue.
Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Man, all that colour stuff, that's psychology. That's interesting
It's-
stuff to look into.
It's more interesting to me that it's so different across different cultures as well, because things like red and
Passion and
anger and
lust.
But in China, it's good luck,
Yeah.
which is just not even here anyways.
Yeah.
So, anyways, Perfect Blue, go check it out. Have either of you been watching any anime?
I have.
He raised his hand.
I've been watching things. I've been watching something you recommended. The Devil is a Part-Timer. I finished Bakano.
There you go.
I did finish Bakano.
Nice.
And then I started watching Devil is a Part-Timer. Bakano, I enjoyed it for the first half, and then the second half I didn't enjoy as much.
Oh.
I don't know. It didn't like wrap up as much as I hoped it would, I guess. It had a lot of questions to begin with that got me hooked. And I was really fascinated to see the story from other people's perspectives. And then it just it was a little confusing, and it stayed that way. I've since read up on what the story actually was and how it all tied together. But it wasn't as clearly done, for me at least, that I could tie together the story by the end of it.
Okay.
And also I was confused. I was left confused because it's 16 episodes, but it's 13 episodes, and 3 of them were OVAs or something.
Did you end up checking them out?
I watched the first one.
And it was clearly very different?
Yeah.
It's got, who's the psychopath wearing the white suit? It's like his protege, right?
No, Lad.
Lad, yeah. It's that guy's protege, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Those OVAs suck. Don't watch those.
Right. Yeah, I didn't, it confused me that it's because I got to the end of 13, and I saw there were 3 episodes left, and then 13 just wrapped itself up like a season finale. I'm like, what's happening?
Yeah.
Have I skipped one or something?
It was something that we missed in the UGK setting terms.
OVA,
original video animation. So something that happens when an anime will screen on air, for week to week. And then for super fans, usually what they do on the Blu-ray is they don't just do a director's commentary. I mean, they do that as well, but they'll do extra episodes just for the fans.
Wow.
So it can be anywhere between 1 episode to more. Like in this case, it's 3. And varying levels of quality. Sometimes they're great, sometimes they're not. But OVA doesn't also mean... It can also just mean straight to video. And there are some great straight to video stuff that came out in the 80s. Like, holy shit. But yeah... That's a shame. I really like it.
I really like the characters, especially Isaac and Miri. They were my favourites. Just crazy anime characters. But I don't know. I wanted to see more of Lad's story get wrapped up in a way that it wasn't. He gets sent off the train. So Lad's the psychopath in the white suit, and he goes up against the rail tracer, who's another psychopath. And they're on the top of the train fighting. And the rail tracer gets a hold of Lad's girlfriend, and he's about to kill her or something. And Lad says, "No, I'm the only one who gets to kill her." because that's like an arrangement he has with her. He's like, I'm going to kill all these people, and then I'm going to kill you one day, and it's like this weird sadomasochistic relationship they've got, where she's staying with him because she knows he's the only one going to kill her or something. I guess it makes her feel safe that nothing else is going to kill her.
Yeah, I guess.
Feels secure in that. And the rail tracer guy, he grabs, like, he hooks some rope onto her passing by one of those post bag, what do you call them? Like one of those hooks that's for post bags. And the rope starts to despool off the back of this train super fast, and he wraps the other end around her throat, and he says, "What's it going to be? You throw yourself off this train, or she's going to get decapitated by this rope," kind of thing. So Lad Rousseau, this psychopath, he decides, well, that's it. I have to be the one to kill this girl, so I have to throw myself off the train to do it, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So he throws himself off the train, grabs a hold of the rope, which is unspooling, grabs his girlfriend so she doesn't die, and then his arm gets like ripped off from the force of this thing, or it, like all the muscles in his hand and the skin gets torn off, and he's left with like this skeletal hand. And that's how you find him at the start of the film, at the start of the series, in like episode 1, I think. The cops are seeing him at the side of the tracks, and he like raises his hand at her. and I expected to then see what happens from that point. Like a lot of films and TV shows that start with something happening, and then like I guess you're wondering how I got in this situation. They'll like jump back in time to show you how they got there, and then the last arc of the movie will be from that point on, and that's kind of what I expected from this one, I guess. Like we start with all these bodies at the side of the track, and you're left to go, what's happened? What's the story? It jumps back in time and keeps jumping forward and backward in time to tell you the story, and then you get to that point, and then there's not like it didn't like wrap up the way I expected.
That kind of wasn't the point, I don't think. I think the point was just to explore the supernatural element with the immortal people, and everything else is kind of incidental or interesting. I mean, there's so many characters in that, and I think that they're all really great. And it kind of set itself up where it could have a second season, but I don't think it needs it. I think that the plot threads that leave questions get wrapped up enough. I don't really need to see Lad kill that chick.
It's worth... Yeah, no, it wasn't that. It was like I wanted to see Lad, what happens to him, and whether he actually finds, like, tracks down and kills the rail tracer kind of thing.
It kind of insinuated that he was going to go after him at the end. It's like his last line, right? He's in hospital, and he's like, I'm going to go find the rail tracer, man. Yeah.
I don't know. It wasn't bad by any means. I still enjoyed it overall. It's just that it didn't take the direction that I expected it to from about halfway through. The characters, as I say, were the main reason for watching. You watch it for the individual character arcs, especially Cheslaw. There's a little immortal boy that's about 12 years old or something. You learn that they're all immortal because like 200 years ago or something, they were all out at sea, like 30 people, and they made a pact with the devil or a demon or something. This demon made them all immortal, and he gave one of them the recipe for this immortal drink. And the only way for these immortals to kill each other or to die is to place one hand on the other one's forehead and consume them. And it's a really cool animation when they do it. They literally get sucked up. They like turn into skeletons, and all their flesh and stuff gets sucked up into the palm of the other one, and they consume them. And all the 30 of them the next day say, I think this is too powerful for this to be around.
Yeah.
I don't think we should just spread this elixir around the place willy-nilly. We should agree to not spread this information. All but one guy who's a crazy scientist kind of guy, and he's like, no, I must know the recipe for this immortal elixir. So he starts to go around consuming them. The rest of them decide, for safety's sake, we need to split up and never meet again. And that's kind of the story that you're piecing up. You're realizing that they're starting to cross paths again.
Right.
And this crazy scientist guy, he has since, by devouring a couple different people, he's started to piece together the recipe a little bit, and he starts to work on it. He's made one that's not quite it's not quite working. They're immortal, so if you kill them, their blood comes back into their body and they stand up again, but they'll still age. And some of that gets out into the population, and some just random thugs beat up a guy who's got some of it, and they start to drink it thinking it's alcohol, and now these random thugs are immortals as well. And I really like the way that story ends. Is that one of the stories you're following the whole way through is this young sweet girl who's trying to work out what's happened to her brother, and she realizes that he got mixed up with the wrong crowd, and this mafia gang have got a hold of him, and eventually they realize that he was one of these immortals who stole this drink and didn't realize he was immortal. He knocks off this mafia clan once he realizes he's immortal and he can't be killed, and he's like, "Oh, look at me, I'm super immortal. What are you going to do to me?" So they knock him out, put him and his buddies in individual oil cans, and then fill the oil cans with concrete. And they're like, "Yeah, you're immortal, but you'll still age at the bottom of the river."
Yeah.
And so they throw him in this. They throw him down to the bottom of the river. And she eventually finds out. She finds the guys who did it and was like, "Can I get my brother back?" And they're like, "Yeah, just go dredge up the whatever river. He should still be alive in a perpetual state of drowning." Which is fucked up.
Yeah,
it's really good though.
So yeah, there were moments like that I really enjoyed. So I would recommend it overall.
What would you score it?
Out of 10, I would give it a 6.5.
6? That's weak. Fair enough.
It just wasn't what I expected.
Just why you go into things with no expectations.
Then I went on to start watching The Devil is a Part-Timer, which I am loving. I'm only 5 episodes in, I think, but I love it. It's so humorous. There's so many funny bits. Just hilarious. I wrote a couple of bits down that I had to remember.
My favorite part from the first episode is so they get I mentioned it in the recommendation. Is the devil and his right hand come to Tokyo and they can't speak Japanese. Yeah. My favourite part from the first episode is the devil starts speaking broken Japanese to somebody to get a place for them to rent, and his friend is like, "Oh my god, you can speak Japanese!" And he's like, "Oh, shh. Don't make a big deal out of it." Oh man, it's so good.
Yeah, my favourite bit is General Alziel. He's trying to use his magic as soon as they've arrived. Somebody approaches the devil, a cop I think, on the street, because they're all dressed really weird and they're talking in a weird language. Yeah, they think they're cosplaying. These cops are approached because these guys are clearly suspicious. And he shouts at him in his demon language, "You dare approach King Satan himself!" And he starts to do this hand motion summoning magic power, and he shoots his hand up in the air to do this magic, and of course nothing happens because he doesn't have magic in this realm. But because he put his hand up, a taxi stops. Yeah. And he looks at Satan and he goes, "Did I?" Satan goes, "No, I don't think that was you. I don't think that was your magic."
It's so good.
It's stuff like that. It's very funny, very funny. They go to a real estate agent and they keep calling it the real estate agent because they didn't realise the words and stuff. And there's things in the background that are funny as well. They pass a poster for Holy Potter. Yeah. And it's clearly the cover of the first Harry Potter book. Yeah. The only one thing I have to say negative about it though is that the devil adapts to being a human almost instantly. In the first episode, he doesn't act like King Satan. He doesn't act like evil incarnate. Yeah. His character arc of redemption happens pretty damn quickly.
It's probably why I was like, I like this guy. He's my buddy.
Yeah, the hero is pretty funny as well. She arrives at the end of the first episode, I think. And they've got a very, very funny banter between them.
It's a good show, but yeah, there's no second season, and it definitely doesn't wrap anything up, really, but that's fine. There's a manga.
A couple of other recommendations people have made for me while talking to them about the podcast. Bastard, have you heard of that one?
I haven't, actually.
Bastard, it's a mini-series, only 6 episodes long or something. One guy was watching it in the assistant's room at the uni. I got talking to him about the podcast, and he said, "Oh, I'm watching one right now." And he swiveled his computer around to me, and he's watching a thing called Bastard. He said it's got a really funny main character. And then he mentioned,
I might have heard of it anyways.
I mentioned that I was looking for something for our next week's recommendation when we start season 2, something short, and he said you should maybe look at Berserk. Is that a good one? Have you?
I think I mentioned that I'm all caught up with the manga now. I was reading the manga. Okay, so with Berserk, there is a 1997 anime adaptation of the first 2 arcs, and then there's a 2016 and 17 adaptation in CG, and it fucking sucks. Do not watch it. It is panned by everyone. It's crazy. I don't know what they were thinking. It is unbelievably bad. It is a solid 0, 1, or 2.
Damn.
They fucked up so badly. It's still a faithful adaptation, but the art direction, the camera direction, and the animation quality is just like worse than a student project. It's crazy how bad it is.
Right.
Anyways, it's fantastic.
I always wonder what the story behind that sort of shit is. Like, how people get it wrong, and
I should show you a few. Once we finish recording, I'll show you a few like of the meme gifs that went around of just like examples of how bad it is.
Yeah.
But there's the I think it's 26 episodes. During the first 2 arcs that came out in 97, I have that on my to watch list as well. Just because I finished the manga now, and the manga is just, it's beautiful. It's seriously fantastic. And then there's a movie trilogy that came out a couple years ago, which covers the same amount of story, and apparently the movie trilogy is also very good. It's also CG, but not shit. And this might be controversial, I think the first 2 arcs of Berserk are the best, because you still have no idea what's going on, and it's really good. Cool. So, yeah, I would recommend it.
I'll watch that at some point. Not for this next season 2, though, because I already got a recommendation from somebody else about what to watch for season 2. Should we talk about that?
Well, Curtis, have you been watching anything else?
Doesn't
have to be anime.
Give me a second. I watched The Princess Bride.
Had you not seen it?
For the first time in my life.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Really?
And I enjoyed it. It's fun.
Yeah?
Yeah.
My favourite line is Andre the Giant goes missing for 20 minutes, and then he shows up at the end and they're like, where have you been? He's like, I was wandering around and I knew that we would need horses, and so I found 3 horses, and then I thought that we would also need a horse for the lady, and so I got 4 horses. Hello, lady. It's just it's the weirdest. It's not quite what it's paraphrasing, but it's the weirdest delivery of a line, and I don't know where he went for 20 minutes. It's just never explained.
Yeah,
and he just shows up with horses.
He just shows up at the end.
Yeah,
it helps out. It was fun. Like all the casting.
Yeah.
Just a crazy cast of characters.
I didn't watch it for the longest time, even though people were saying it's great, because I was getting it mixed up with Princess Diaries. Which is very different.
Yeah.
That's crack up.
Yeah.
Did you see that there's a tabletop game coming out for The Princess Bride?
No.
Like an RPG tabletop game. I don't mean a board game. I mean a tabletop RPG. That doesn't make any sense to me, because that world is not like a really cool. It's just a generic fantasy world.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any fucking sense. A friend of ours was posting about it.
Weird.
Which doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. But yeah, let's talk about next time on KYFCaYAC. So next week we're going to be starting season 2 of this thing that we're doing, and it was Robert's idea. So you tell us what we're doing.
I decided that we should each watch a different anime, 1 episode of a different anime season, and then come together, and for the first episode of season 2 we will be pitching it to each other, seeing which one sounds like us.
So I'm watching Miss Kobayashi's Maid Dragon, because that was, I think, the most popular anime of 2017.
Oh, wow.
It's not my kind of show, but I'm trying to, get outside of my comfort zone. So you can look that up.
I was looking for something that was not shonen and short. We want season 2 to be shorter than the Frieza arc was. So that's pretty much the only ideas I had. I put it out there on the Reddit and the subreddit and stuff, and somebody said I should watch Violet Evergarden, which I know literally nothing about other than the name. And the fact it's on Netflix. So,
that's the best way to approach stuff. For the most part.
So that's what I'll be watching. That was a suggestion by Reddit username Joshua son of a nun. So Joshua son of a nun.
It wasn't a very good nun then.
I'm watching Lupin the Third, which came out in the 70s, and it didn't start off directed by Hayao Miyazaki, but Hayao Miyazaki eventually takes over the show, and it's his sort of first directing role.
Oh wow, cool.
Hayao.
So no other one.
Yeah, I know. Hayao.
Yeah.
Hayao Miyazaki.
Hayao Miyazaki.
Hayao Miyazaki. Which is essentially the only reason why I'm watching it.
What was it called?
Lupin the Third.
Lupin the Third.
It's based on an Italian story.
Is
or
it?
Western story. It's set in Italy.
Is it?
Yes.
I I didn't pick up.
didn't
The
read
Japanese characters.
Yeah.
They're
from Japan?
Yeah.
It's set in Italy, though, is my understanding. We might be completely...
Okay.
I could be wrong. Go come back next week.
We'll find out next week.
But yeah, no, Lupin the Third is apparently like a series that you have to watch, and they've just released Lupin the Third Part 5.
Right. Okay.
So it's still going.
Yeah.
There are huge gaps where there's been nothing, but it's still going, which is why it's on my radar as well.
Cool.
People are like, "Hey, Lupin the Third Part 5 is coming out. It's been going since the 70s. Where should you start?"
Right.
Lupin the 3/5.
And there's also like Lupin the Third, and there's like a female variant, but it's not Lupin. It's like she gets her own thing. Anyways,
Cool. Right. We'll
yeah.
find
So
out.
next week is a potluck, and we'll just see how that goes. Yeah. But until next week, you can get in touch with us at KYFCaYAC@gmail.com. That's KYFCaYAC@gmail.com. We're at that on Twitter. And then there's just social media. I shouldn't have to explain how this works. There's just...
Have you heard of a thing called Facebook?
Yeah.
We're on that.
If you're listening right now, you should be aware
of something.
Of all of these things.
The cooler thing would be emails. So write in, and we'll do an email segment if we get more emails. Social media, like and subscribe, upvote, whatever. I have been your anime knight, Joel.
I'm your anime squire, Robert.
and your anime peasant, Curtis.
See you next week. Bye. Bye.